They were young and found in rivers, but some say the patterns in the water were not accidents at all. In February 1997, Patrick McNeill was a 21-year-old Fordham student who loved baseball, family dinners, and the kind of routine that makes parents relax when their kid moves to a big city. On the night of February 16th, he went out with friends to a Manhattan bar popular with students. He was seen on security footage leaving the front entrance alone, a little unsteady but still moving with purpose. The kind of exit that usually ends in a cab ride and a late call to say goodnight. Instead, he stepped into a slice of city where the blocks are crowded with lights and yet feels strangely empty, and from that frame forward, his path is argued over like a puzzle with two missing pieces. One set of witnesses said a dark van pulled out soon after and drifted in the same direction he walked. Others said two men lingered outside the bar and then followed at a distance, not close enough to talk, close enough to keep him in view. Patrick did not call home. He did not make it back to his dorm. Searches ran for days. Flyers went up on poles that had seen too many faces before his. 2 months later, his body surfaced in the East River, miles from where he was last seen. The official ruling was accidental drowning, the familiar verdict that attaches itself to winter rivers and nights out. But the details interfered with that sentence. Family members were told of marks that looked like pressure around his neck and ankles. Private investigators argued that his body did not show a level of decomposition consistent with weeks in cold water, as if he had been elsewhere for much of the time he was missing. They also noted a crude smile drawn on graffiti near the place where he was recovered, a symbol that would later be reported at a number of similar scenes. 2 retired New York detectives, Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte, studied the photographs and interviews and began to map what they believed was a pattern. Young, athletic men leaving bars at night, last seen alone, later found in rivers, often after inexplicable delays. They came to believe that Patrick did not wander to the water by chance, but was targeted, held, and then placed. Critics pushed back hard. They pointed out that a city like New York produces tragic accidents every winter, that graffiti is common near waterways, that memory under stress distorts timelines and produces confident witnesses who cannot agree. Even so, Patrick's story sits strangely on the page. He was steady on his feet earlier in the night. He was heading toward a neighborhood he knew, and while alcohol lowers caution, it does not erase good habits entirely. Friends remembered him as careful, the kind of person who checked on others at the end of a night rather than leaving them to chance. His parents describe a son who was not looking to escape, who was planning ahead for the next season of classes and for summer at home. Stand where the footage ends and look down that street. The air moves off the river in long, cold breaths. Traffic noise hums like a low ceiling. It feels normal until your eye catches the shadow that seems to reappear half a block back whenever you turn your head. If Patrick was followed, the walk from the bar to the river becomes a corridor with exits that are only theoretical. If he was taken, the weeks between his disappearance and the day the river gave him back become a gap that refuses to close. The question of the smile painted nearby is almost secondary. The crueler idea is that someone used the water as a stage, a surface that erases footprints and muffles timelines. Families who live with that possibility do not get relief from official phrases. They live with a picture frame that always shows the same last moment, and with a city that answers most questions, but not the ones that matter most. Accident or design, drift or direction, you can stand by that river and feel the difference in your chest before you have words for it. If you were on that corner and saw a friend leave ahead of you, would you believe a bad turn took him? Or would you scan the curb for a van that should not be there? Tell us what you believe in the comments below. Halloween of 2002 felt like a harmless rite of passage for Chris Jenkins, a 21-year-old at the University of Minnesota who had a steady job, a close family, and a plan for the spring that included graduation and a better winter coat. He went downtown with friends, wearing a costume that made him easy to spot, and witnesses inside the bar remembered him as calm, not sloppy, not a problem. Close to midnight, he was asked to leave after a minor disagreement. He stepped into air that bit the lungs, coatless and alone. That was the last time anyone spoke to him. 4 months later, his body was pulled from the Mississippi River, still dressed in the same costume he had worn when he walked out. Police filed the case as an accidental drowning, and for a while that label sat unchallenged. Another winter river tragedy in a city built beside fast, cold water. But his parents would not let the details rest. They asked why his hands were positioned across his chest in a way that suggested placement rather than chance. They asked why there were not clearer signs of hypothermia after hours outside on a sub-zero night. They asked why witnesses who saw him near the river could not agree on the path he took from the door to the water. As attention returned to the file, the tone changed. Investigators re-examined the evidence, spoke again with staff and patrons, and acknowledged that the accident theory did not fully account for the facts. Years after the recovery, the department reclassified Chris's death as a homicide. That decision does not explain what happened in the gap, but it moves the story out of the realm of unfortunate drift and into the realm of human choice. For detectives Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte, the case looked like one tile in a larger design they had been tracing for years. Athletic, promising young men vanish after a night out, their bodies recovered in rivers, often without the injuries that falls usually leave behind, often with time periods missing that are difficult to explain. They pointed again to the crude smile painted near some scenes and argued that the symbol worked like a signature for a group or for copycats who understood the game. Critics challenged the jump from pattern to conspiracy. They reminded the public that rivers catch the dead from many causes, that holidays like Halloween inflate alcohol-related risk, and that the mind is a pattern-finding engine that sometimes sees what it wants. Yet even the skeptical detective will tell you that certain details cut against the grain. The placement of hands, the intact condition of a costume after months in moving water, the gap between disappearance and discovery that does not look like pure submersion, all of that asks for an explanation more specific than accident. For families, argument about theory is secondary to the ache of not knowing. They replay the last phone call, the last text, the decision to leave early or stay late, and look for the hinge on which the story turned. Imagine the sidewalk outside the bar, bright from neon and road salt, and the way the sound changes as you walk toward the river, the party noise replaced by a heavy quiet that hangs beneath the bridge. If a car eased to the curb and a door opened, would a cold and tired student mistake danger for a ride? If strangers matched your stride 10 paces back, would you notice through costume paint and holiday cheer? Chris's case carries the extra weight of a label that changed. When a city revises a verdict from accident to homicide, it is an admission that the first story was not careful enough. It is also a warning to everyone who walks those river paths in winter that risk can come on 2 feet as well as on ice. Do you accept the official revision and stop there? Or do you see a template stretching from one state to another, from one current to the next? Tell us how you read the pattern in the comments. In January 2017, Pittsburgh student Dakota James left a night out in the cultural district with friends and stepped into cold air that smelled like street food and river wind. He texted, he walked. He appeared on surveillance near a bridge just after 11, steady on his feet and looking in the direction of the water. Then, he was gone. His body was recovered 40 days later in the Ohio River miles downstream. The official ruling was accidental drowning, the familiar conclusion that tries to square a missing month with a simple narrative. Private investigators hired by his family and independent experts argued that the condition of his body did not match full-time immersion. They pointed to indications that his remains had been preserved for part of the missing period, and to faint marks around the neck that looked more like pressure than like river debris. Friends said he had not been stumbling when he left, that he knew his way home, that he did not make a habit of walking beside the river at night. His mother, Pamela, pressed officials for answers and found only the circular logic of a closed case. Detectives Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte added his name to their map of young men who fit the same contours, last seen near bars, recovered in water, missing for stretches that strain accident to the breaking point. They noted again that smiley face graffiti appeared near several recoveries across multiple states. Critics argued that coincidence explains graffiti better than conspiracy, that rivers take what cities give them, that winter distorts time. But when you line up the last images of these men in a row, the sameness makes your skin recognize a shape your brain resists. Dakota appears upright, oriented, phone in his hand. He is not weaving into traffic. He is not drifting without aim. From that moment, the story becomes a choice between two hard versions of reality. Either a capable adult lost his way and reached the water by accident, then somehow vanished from view for more than a month before being returned by the river, or someone intervened. If someone intervened, the implications are larger than one case. They suggest organized action or at least imitation of a method that uses water as a cloak. For a family, the difference between those two realities is the difference between grief and dread. Grief hurts, but ends in a sentence. Dread does not end. Dakota's friends organized searches and vigils and refused to let his face fall to the bottom of a file. Volunteers walked along walls and under bridges, called his name into corners where sound hides, and learned what every city keeps beneath the postcard surface. Rivers are both scenery and machinery. They carry evidence away and disguise the time that passed. The longer a body waits in hidden places, the harder it is to argue with certainty about anything, and certainty is what families need and almost never get. If you walk the bridge where Dakota was last seen and look down, the water appears calm and indifferent. You can stand there and rehearse the official language until it sounds reasonable, and then a single detail breaks it. The neatness of his last image, the absence of a stumble, the weeks that refuse to stick to the calendar. Now imagine a car that stops just out of camera range, a door open to warmth, a voice that uses your name. How many people would say yes in that moment? How many would step in because their city still felt like home? To say the theory is true is to accuse ghosts you cannot see. To say it is false is to tell families to accept math that never balances. What remains certain is that a person who was loved left a place that was bright with company and ended in a place that eats light. Between those points is a line someone must draw. If you had to choose tonight between calling this pattern coincidence or design, where would you put your mark? Share your view in the comments below. Rivers cross cities like nerves, and sometimes they carry more than mistakes. If you want more stories that make you look twice at the water, like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments. And remember, not every current is natural. Some are pulled by unseen hands.